Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue my series on adapting the fighting fantasy rules to a Twine game using the Sword and Planet subgenre of science fiction to inspire the setting and the plot. So I'm here at the beginning of the game. This is all much as it was last video, in fact identical to how it was last video. But if you were to sort of play through what I've written, you would see that there is a couple more paragraphs, several more paragraphs that I've written, and that has required a couple of more types of section. In other words, it's required some more code to allow particular things to happen. So it says there that you have lost, but of course that's not really true. I've just ended that with a 0 because I haven't quite decided what's going to happen at this point, so I made it the ending to the game, and I've only got ending in a loss thus far. I haven't coded the possibility of ending and winning the game. So let's have a look at the code. We'll be looking today only really at this page, because the additions that I've made are a couple of extra bits of code in here. And in particular, I'll go through them one at a time. So that's probably big enough. So as you will probably remember, if you've been following this series, most of this page is a big if, else if sort of structure based on $S, $A1. $S is the array that has the text and the details of each section as to what sort of section they are, in terms of, is it one where the player has a choice, and if so, what are the choices? Is it one where the player tests their luck? And if so, where do they go on being successful and unsuccessful? Is it one where an attribute changes, and so on and so on? $A is the attribute that keeps track of which section you're at. So you'll often be looking at $S, $A, something. And in this particular case, we're looking at $S, $A1, because that's where the code for what sort of section is this is stored. $S, $A0 is the text, or an indication that there's no text. And the next thing, once we've displayed any text that needs to be displayed, the next thing to look at is, well, what happens now? Is there a choice, or does the game end, or what? And that's $S, $A1. So most of this is just if SA1 equals 0, then do this. If it equals 1, then do this. If it equals 2, then do this, and so on and so on. And as you might expect, I'm adding new things at the bottom. This isn't in any particular objective order. It's just in, basically, it's just in order of what I need, the next thing that I need gets the next number, sort of thing. So it's not in a very logical order. It's just in sort of the order that I needed to write them. So therefore, most of the new stuff is going to be down the bottom. But I did make a little change to rolling against where is it? Sorry, I'm trying to talk and think at the same time. Oh yeah, I know where it is, sorry. Up here where we alter or assign a value to $H, which is the variable that keeps track of what I've named respect, which is at the beginning of the game, you might end up staying with this sort of group of alien hunter-gatherers, and their respect for you, or lack of, will affect their actions, and therefore that might affect how well you do in the game. So, for example, if you get lost, whether they come and look for you or say, well, good riddance, depends on a roll against, or a die roll that's then compared to the respect value. And similarly, when you leave them, I've planned what exactly will happen will depend again on a die roll plus the respect level. Obviously, with the higher respect level, meaning sort of more good things are more likely to happen. They're more likely to, give you substantial gifts, etc. So, what have I changed? Well, what I've changed is that when we are changing $H rather than assigning it a value, and that takes place within this if $H means if $H has already been assigned a value, we add to it, or if this entry is a negative number, that will mean that it's lowered. But either way, we add the value that is in this slot here. But I've added that we give the player a message. And I've done that with the usual, my usual way of putting all the code into a string and then printing that string all in one hit, because I have found that avoids a lot of layout problems that you can get when you print it sort of one bit at a time. You can have spaces. In particular, you can have spaces that you didn't want. So we set y equal to the code for changing text to bold. We have respect. If $S $A2 is greater than 0, we add a plus, and then we add the value. Oh, I've accidentally moved it. Sorry. We add the value in $S $A2, and then a code that is stop printing things in bold, and then a couple of line breaks, and then we print all that. So if the reason we have this extra plus here is because if it's a negative, then we can just say respect -2, for example. But if it's a positive and we say respect 3, it's not immediately obvious what that means. So we say respect +3. That's why we add that plus. And so mechanically the same thing happens. It's just that the player gets a message to sort of, if they haven't noticed it, to remind them that, or to draw their attention to the fact that their actions, possibly mediated by random rolls, have caused a change in respect. So the other addition I have made is down the bottom, where you would expect it to be. And that is something that's very important in fighting fantasy: changing attributes. Often you'll find that things go up or down, more often down, because the overall arc of a fighting fantasy story is usually that you sort of start at full health and with full fitness, and things are gradually worn down. Not so much your skill, although that can happen as well, but in particular your stamina and also your luck kind of gradually wear down, and hopefully you can sort of, they're not worn down enough to kill you, sort of thing. If you're lucky, you can sort of survive this. And there's a certain amount of being able to stop some of that decay. There's, for example, in a fantasy setting, you might have potions that restore your stamina, stuff like that. But on the whole, it'll be mostly negative. It's mostly you start at full health and then sort of go down. Some role-playing games, that's true, but there's also a sort of an arc of increase, of leveling up, as they often say, that as you get experience, that will improve your skills or your whatever numbers measure, you know, your character's values. And if you survive, then you're sort of gradually building up your stats. But Finding Fantasy doesn't really do that leveling up, at least not in the game books. In the tabletop role playing game, there's a certain amount of that, I think. But in the game books, each one's sort of a single adventure, I guess, and you're not really leveling up. You're just trying to survive. But anyway, we have a change to attributes, and it's fairly straightforward. This bit of code looks quite complicated, but I'll explain it. It's not really. So we have a note that says it is indeed a change to attributes. So because I'm going to be using this particular slot in a couple of different places, I decided, instead of referring to it by its full name each time, I just set Z equals $S $A2, and then that reduces the size of this code, because we can just say Z instead of $S $A2. So we set ATZ1, that is so this the value of Z, which we get from $S A2, is what attribute are we changing. So 1 refers to skill, 2 to stamina, 3 to luck. We set $ATZ1, so that is the current value. We have an initial value, and then we have a current value, and they often will be different. We set the current value of whatever this attribute is to math.min. Well, that means the smaller of however many items. We're going to have items in these brackets that are separated by commas, and we're going to, or the computer is going to assess all of them, and then it's going to pick the smallest one. So what are the two options? Well, we have $ATZ0, that is the initial value, or $ATZ1 plus $S $A3. So in other words, get the smaller of the initial value of the attribute we're talking about, or the current value plus whatever's in slot 3 of the relevant part of $S. And the reason for this math.min is if $S $A3 is positive. So if we encounter a something that gives us +4 stamina or +3 luck or whatever it might be, we might make the new value ATZ1 plus that 4 or that 3 or whatever. But if that takes us over the initial value, we use the initial value instead. And this is the rule in Fighting Fantasy, and it is a rule that's in a lot of tabletop role-playing games, which is that when you heal or get back something you've lost, you can't go over your starting value. If you have a healing potion, it will heal you. It might give you 6 stamina or whatever, but it won't take you over your initial value. There are some special cases where you can go over your initial value, like you might have the opportunity to do some sort of special training which increases your skill or something like that. But generally speaking, that you can sort of recover only up to your initial value. And then we do this thing with Y, where we're going to have a whole bunch of code in Y and then print it at the end. And that will simply print something like stamina. $AN is the array that has the names of the attributes. So it'll say something like stamina plus, if it's a plus, 3 or +2 or something like that. And if it's or stamina -5 or luck +2 or something like that. Note that this is separate to testing your luck. This is a change to attributes that is separate to the special case of when you test your luck, you always lose 1 luck. So this is sort of miscellaneous changing to attributes. And then if $AT21 is less than 1, in other words, if your current stamina is less than 1, and of course that would only happen if the change that was made was 2 stamina, then tell the player that, yeah, you're dead, or as we usually do, find a new paragraph, which is stored in here, and then go back to main, go back to the top. So those are the changes I have made in the last couple of days since my last video. Probably the next one is going to be having an option for combat, because so far I've sort of avoided doing that because it's going to be a little bit complicated, but that's probably the next thing I'm going to do. But for now, I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.